We'll kick this thing off and get going. We're live on YouTube as well. Hopefully, you all can hear me. This is just the second time that I'm using this. Oh, hold on. As I say that, I may need to restart. All right, can you all hear me now? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me. I may need to restart this. My mic just disconnected. Hold on, just a second. Let me make sure I'm good on YouTube before we really get going. All right. Can you all hear me on there? Okay, I hear you. I hear myself. Okay, great. It's good to have all of you on here again. If you want to start calling, if you want to load in, if you want to kind of share your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, anything that you have, I'll start taking calls. But first off, I just want to go through the early part of the season here real quick. Obviously, Xavier sitting now at 2-1 on the season. Cincinnati sitting undefeated at 3-0. What a game last night between UK and Louisville. Louisville looks like a national championship contender. Kentucky obviously missing Jaden Quaintance in that game last night, so shorthanded for the Wildcats, but still a team. Going into the season, I talked about whether Kentucky or Louisville, who was going to be better positioned to win a national championship this year, and I thought Louisville, they have the better backcourt, and they have a backcourt that I believe is the best backcourt in the country. And if you compare that with some interior play, I thought that Louisville was going to be best positioned to make a run in March. And look, Pat Kelsey, he's going to have to win a game in the NCAA tournament, something he's never done before. But if ever any team could do it, it's this year's team. Louisville looks primed and positioned with all the talent on that roster to win this year in March. They looked fantastic last night. It's great to have the juice in that rivalry again after it took a few years off there in the Kenny Payne era at Louisville. That rivalry is back in a big way. That was Louisville's first win over Kentucky since 2020. But I know a lot of you probably tuning in for some Xavier thoughts and reactions after that loss to Santa Clara on Monday night. Xavier losing to Santa Clara by 19. Had Roddy Anderson not hit that three toward the end of the game, it would have ended up being the worst loss in the history of the Cintas Center. 22 is the worst that it ever was. The loss to, I believe it was Oral Roberts in the game right after the Crosstown shootout brawl. That was a 22-point loss when all those Xavier players were suspended. So it just kind of puts in perspective what happened on Monday. And you can tell, Richard Pitino tweeting it out just a little bit ago that, this is an opportunity for this team. Obviously, going into Iowa, it's going to be a very, very tough test on Friday night against a really good Iowa team early on in this season. Can the Musketeers respond against Iowa? You know, when Rick and I did the preseason predictions for Xavier, the way that we went into it and we talked about it on the show was I kind of gave what I felt like was, hey, if everything goes right this season for Xavier, if everything breaks the Musketeers' way, if everything goes right, then Xavier could potentially work their way to 16 wins. And I think Rick gave what both of us believe to be the floor of this team at 11 wins. And now, can Xavier find themselves somewhere in the middle? That game against Santa Clara was a game that a lot of people had circled just because of how good Santa Clara was coming into the game. The crazy thing for Santa Clara was they were without one of their stars, if you will, a Michigan State transfer. It didn't play in that game the other night. So for Santa Clara, that's a really good team. It's a bye game, but that's a team that came into Cintas and won by 19, 87-68. So those are some initial reactions. NKU right now. I haven't seen the last few minutes of that game, but NKU, I believe, was down 10 the last time that I checked to East Tennessee State. Miami having a heck of a season, a start to the season. Now they haven't had a huge test yet. Their best game was their opener against Old Dominion. They're 2-0. They played a non-D1 game against Trinity Christian, put up 129 points. But I said this in the offseason. I said it going into the season that I thought this Miami team had a chance to win the MAC this year. I think they're that good. I think they will contend with Akron to win the MAC, and I stand by that. I think, obviously we're going to see what this team is as they get closer toward MAC play, but they don't really have a challenge. Miami doesn't have anybody on the schedule before MAC play that really stands out. They're not playing any bye games against high major opponents. The toughest game that they play in the non-conference from here on out is against Eastern Kentucky on December 13th. They're 211th in the country. They don't play a top 130 team until Akron on January 3rd. You could easily see this this Miami team rolling into MAC play undefeated, maybe whatever. I'm not going to sit here and do the math right now that quickly, but somewhere in that 12, 13 and 0 range, no doubt about it. But again, I know a lot of you probably want to know some things about Xavier. I'd love to answer some questions. So if any of you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, load them up. I don't have anybody in the queue right now, so if anybody wants to be first, go ahead. Um, just some early takeaways from the Big East. Obviously, not a great first week for the Big East. I think to me, Butler has stood out. I've had Butler a couple of times. They were picked 10th in the Big East this year. They're not going to finish 10th. I don't know how high they'll finish, but that's a team that's better than 10th. DePaul taking a brutal L last night to sub 300 team. Seton Hall has looked okay. And now we'll get to our first caller. Okay, go ahead. Now this is going to be the test of whether I can hear you or not. Go ahead and speak.
Okay, so if you're Patino, do you
There we
kind of
go.
look forward to the next season, or do you continue on looking at this one?
Well, you can't write off the season 3 games in, right? But I think you can manage expectations in the fact that you understand what you have in front of you. The difference, you look at last year, and that's been the thing I think I've gotten asked about the most this week is you look at last year, right? And we knew that last year's team had the talent on it to make the NCAA tournament, right? You had Zach Freemantle, you had Ryan, you had all Big East caliber talent on last year's team, and you went through the first 2 bye games. What was that? Texas Southern and IU Indy, I think, in the first 2 games of the season, and you played Dayton, and you looked great. You looked great against Notre Dame in the exhibition, and then it never really panned out in the regular season until it got to February. You rattle off some wins. The difference now with this team is I'm just not sure that this team has anybody that could contend for an all Big East preseason spot, as you will. So, or a postseason spot, I guess you should say, because nobody was on the preseason list. So the talent level of this year's team is obviously different, and that's where I say you're going to try and squeeze as much juice out of this team as you can the rest of the I mean, you can't just write off the season 3 games in, but what you have to do is evaluate this season based on is anybody on this team going to play to a Big East level good enough that you can trust them to be on the roster next season and build a core around going forward, or what are you going to have to do next season when the portal runs around in April? What is that going to look like when you try to build this roster again? After one season in the Big East, are you going to have to reevaluate and say, look, we need more Big East caliber talent out of the portal now that we have our staff in place from the get-go and there's no lag behind. No, I know Patino was hired the day after the portal opened, so it's not it wasn't a huge step behind, but it was a step behind having to, get acclimated to the system and get those players in place. But you can't totally write off the season. You have to evaluate the individuals and what you might have going forward. Anything else?
No, thanks, Paul. Appreciate that.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that was if anybody else has anything, make sure, yeah, go ahead and call in. But I would say, let's see here. I do have a YouTube comment. I will flash that up on the screen. Jimmy Woods says, Paul, I saw Xavier sign Kayla Kaus. Is planning on signing any other high school recruits for next season? I mean, there are no high school recruits currently set to be signed. Kalick was the only one on today's signing day that was, set that did sign, I guess I should say. I don't think they're writing off high school recruiting by any means, but this goes back to what I was just saying, Jimmy, in the fact that you have to evaluate what kind of talent you have. And if you don't have the talent that you need right now, or some of this young talent doesn't pan out at the Big East level like you were hoping that it would, then next season, do you want to effectively trust a group of 4 or 5 high schoolers to come in and build from there, or do you want to go back to the portal and just recalibrate that way? I don't I can't sit here and say I know or have any idea. I have not asked the coaching staff how many high school targets they are looking at going into next season, but at least for now, Kayla House is the only one that signed, and really the only one that I've heard a ton about. There have obviously been names, Von Carvala, like Asher Elson, a couple other names that have been thrown around here lately as far as targets. I just saw a couple of guys on social media here before I popped on this space, but just in general, he's the only one. Kalick is the only one that has been signed so far. And again, I just don't know how much you're going to rely on high school recruiting, depending on what this rebuild for Xavier is going to look like. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for sending me. Just had a question about the revenue sharing. So I think Greg Christopher said that, Xavier probably wasn't going to be able to reach the full 20 million cap, obviously. Like, no Big East teams are going to be able to. But with Xavier spending, I think people were saying around 6 million this year. Pardon, like, sorry if you already addressed this earlier, but
No.
do you have any idea of how much they might be trying to spend next year, and if they tried to save any money this year, knowing that it was gonna kind of be a rebuild year, and
Yeah.
they didn't want to use everything and deplete that?
I don't get the impression that they saved any money for if you're asking me from this past portal, is that what you mean to say, like, if they were given a certain pool of money and then they saved it for the 26 off season? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, say if they were given 10 million, or like, or I don't know, 8 or 9 million. So let's just spend 6 now and put that 2 or 3 to next year, so we can really load up. Yeah, just wondering if they did that for strategy. I mean, because you're bringing in however many guys they brought in, like 10 new guys. Obviously, you're gonna have to spread that money a bit, and
Yeah.
or they just empty in the clip.
Well, empty in the clip. Here's what I'll say. I don't get the impression that they saved any money from this past portal season. What they had, to use the words of my good friend Adam Baum, what they had, they gave for the portal for this past off season. Now, what kind of number they're trying to get to for this upcoming season? I mean, you've heard the numbers, 8 to 10 thrown around, but will they get there is yet to be determined, right? That's the objective of all of the campaigns that the Basketball Excellence Fund and the All for One Fund that they're running right now to try to get to a point that by April, Coach Pitino has a number that he's comfortable with to work with in the portal in this next upcoming off season. I don't get the impression, though, to answer your question directly. I believe what they had in this past portal, they spent on this year's roster, and I think 6 million is a pretty accurate number there. They did. I don't think it was over 6, but it was somewhere in the 5.5 to 6 range. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And also I've been trying to read up a bit about how they can get additional money. I mean, obviously the cap for revenue sharing is at 20 million, but teams can still, like, bigger schools can still kind of go over that with the collective. Is that correct? Like, they can still find loopholes there.
It's sort of. What I will say is, and again, the tough part when I talk to coaches, and I'm sure some of you have listened to the Rebound Rundowns coaching sequence series that I did this off season of trying to get an answer out of some of these coaches of what they've been told or what guidelines do they follow, and it's really hard right now because nobody knows what to follow. It could be the NCAA, it could be it could be Congress, it could be some sort of clearinghouse. It feels like it varies one day to the next. What I will say about all of that is just that I think this upcoming off season, this particular, because I have always been in the camp that the SEC and the Big Ten and these big conferences are the Big 12. These conferences with football are going to figure it out. They're not going to let the Big East have a significant long-term advantage just because of the rules that are set in place right now. They've always figured out ways to get around it. They've always figured out ways to keep themselves one step ahead of the game, or at least keep themselves on par with it. I think they will continue to do that. What I will say is that I do think in the way that it's currently structured, that this upcoming off season and the season after, so this past off season, the upcoming one and the season after, so 26 and 27, but a chunk of 3 seasons that the Big East will have or can continue to have at least a little bit of a leg up as long as the rules as they are currently set will be followed, because I do think the Big East and where they are right now, they will have, and I caution that by saying it could all change at a moment's notice. But at least as we sit here right now on November 12th, I do think there's a world where, whether the Big East is able to recruit talent and play to a level that they need to play going forward. I mean, that's up to the coaches to actually go out and get the talent and win games. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying financially, I do think that this upcoming offseason, with the way that football money is structured and the way that basketball money is structured and the cap at 20.5 million, I do sense some frustration from coaches that are at football schools that the Big East will have an advantage, at least in this upcoming offseason. So now again, we sit here in November, some of these conferences could figure it out by April, and then what I'm seeing right now is a move.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's just so much with this going on. I don't know what to think. One last thing, and I'll be done.
Oh, all good.
Would you
Whatever you want. That's why I'm here. We haven't done a spaces yet during the season, so whatever you guys got, I'm here to answer.
thank you. I would just say, like, so for the 2026-27 season, as far as Xavier goes, would you say that, like, it's kind of a make or break year in terms of NIL? Like, say they're 6 or 7 million again, and they're not closer to that 8 or 9. I mean, is that not a doom sentence, but is that going to be pretty rough for them to recover from?
I it's hard to answer that because I'm not somebody with the financial backing to put into a program to say where this that's up to the minds of the people that are actually writing the checks and giving the money, and at least in my mind, because if the number next year is 6 or 7, and let's say that, Ohio State, and pick any football school, they give their football team 15 million. And the other thing is, you got to think with some of these SEC teams, you're also competing with baseball. So basketball may be third to baseball at some of these schools. And so what you have to remember, or at the very least, the basketball coach might not be competing with the football coach, but they might be competing with the women's basketball coach or the baseball coach for some of that money. So that's where I say, at least in this upcoming offseason with that cap at 20 and a half, when football is going to get such an absurdly large percentage of that money, maybe, if Xavier can get it, or any school can get it to 8 to 10 million, then yeah, you're gonna be in a great spot next year. And that's why the push is so hard right now to give Richard Pitino the resources that he needs to win. On the flip side, if you end up with, 5, 6, or 7, you might still be outspending some of these SEC schools that are stuck at 3 or 4. Question is, at that point, what kind of Big East talent can you get with that money? I don't think it'll be a terrible roster at 6 million next year, but it wouldn't be a Final Four caliber roster, and that's where you have to hope that you can go out there and you can get somewhere between 8 and 10. I mean, obviously, the more the better, but you can get somewhere up toward that 10 number, um, then you're really talking.
I don't tell.
Time will
For
tell.
sure.
That is right, Joe. I appreciate you calling in. It's great to hear from you. I know it's been a while since we've all done a space, so it's good to catch up and see some familiar faces on here.
Yeah.
Let's go to Johnny here. It's been a while for Johnny as well. Johnny, go ahead.
Paul, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Nothing going pretty good outside of the basketball situation. But what are you gonna do?
That's right.
So my question um, is kind of more about the team itself. If that's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
We're games in, right? So pretty, very early on. Pretty early. was just kind of looking through kind of numbers, these guys, kind of like efficiency, not just like totals or whatever
Sure.
last year. It seems like literally everyone is down, which maybe is to be expected when you're never have played with them. I was just kind of wondering, um, what you think this team could kind of turn into. You would think they would probably get better having like playing together, in real games, the further they go. But once they get into the Big East, competition is also going to increase from these bye games that they still have left. They have Iowa and that Charleston Classic, but
Yeah.
just kind of curious what you think about how these guys. I'm not saying the ceiling's like super high or anything, but I'm curious about if these guys gel. What do you think? The outlook,
Yeah. I
or if
guess
you think they will.
I guess here's what I'll say. The team will gel because they're a group of very high character individuals who are very upset. I can tell you, I can promise you that this team hates to lose the way that they lost on Monday. I mean, that was a surreal scene at Cintas. I was sitting there in the media bunker and just watching the way that that game played out. You know that that team. I mean, you even heard Rodney Anderson talk about it. I forget which game it was. I think it was after the Lemoyne game where he said, "Look, we know we're not the most talented group, but we're going to have to band together. We're going to have to go out there and we're going to have to win games our way." And the one thing that this team I thought would do better than we saw the other night, I thought they would defend better than they did the other night. I think the offense is clunky because, and I keep going back to that word just because that's what I feel like is the best description for it. Xavier's offense right now looks it's stagnant. It's got latent shot clocks. Guys are playing outside of their game. I think Philip Borovic is a perfect example of that. I think Philip's a really intelligent player, and the role that he played, if you watch last year's New Mexico team, he didn't have to do as much as I think he's trying to overdo this year. And maybe if he can settle into that, then you start to see less turnovers, right, or more fluidity to the offense. I I don't know how many wins are in this team, if I'm being quite honest with you. And I'll say what I said at the beginning of this space. I'll say what I said on the preseason podcast. I thought everything broke right for Xavier. Everything broke right for them. They could get to 16 wins. I had concerns before the season that you heard the show, Rick and I
Yeah.
going back and forth on it. We both had concerns that the season could end up being a 10 or 11 win season. I do think the bye games, you'll get to 6 wins there. So can you beat Seton Hall, DePaul, like those types of teams and get up into that 10 to 12 win range? And I know that is crazy for a lot of Xavier fans listening to this right now and saying, Paul, 7 years ago, Xavier was the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now we're talking about can they get to 12 wins? I think I do think this team is good enough for like 1 or 2 whoa wins, right? I mean, you think about last year, Seton Hall beat UConn in a game. I'm not sure Xavier's going to beat UConn, but like I do think that this team is old enough that they might win a game or 2 where you go, whoa, where'd that come from? I just don't know where that game is, and maybe it's in Charleston in the second game because Georgia's a pretty good team, but Clemson and West Virginia, especially West Virginia, is a pretty new team. Um, it's in a neutral site. Probably won't be a ton of fans of the opposing teams there, so maybe they can catch one of those teams on an off night. You never know. You never know in the crosstown shootout. Cincinnati will probably be double-digit favorites in that. Maybe not double-digit because it's at Cintas, but they'll probably be 7, 8, 9-point favorites in that game. And then at that point, can you do something like you've done in the past where Xavier's not had the talent, but they've still been able to scrape together a way to win the game? I mean, there are opportunities. And the Big East, if you just look at it, the Big East, the middle of the pack down, I would say none of those teams are invincible. So it's hard for me to sit here and say like you don't want if you're Xavier, you don't want to just completely write off the season, but at the same time, you're trying to identify what can these guys do, what can they provide to you in 26 and 27, and that's why I will also say that I'm very interested to see Gabriel Posado play this season. And I don't know if he's going to play. He should be cleared to, the injury itself, I can't imagine is going to keep him out the entire it might. I'm no doctor, but even Richard Pitino had mentioned, I believe it was on the Pitino show a couple weeks ago, where he talked about maybe if Pizzato could be back by a mid to late January situation where I'd love to see him play. He has 3 years of eligibility remaining. I'd love to see whether he could go out there and compete, and then that way okay, he's somebody that you can build around going forward if he is Big East level talent.
I think if Xavier wins the shootout this year, I think Wes Miller might get tossed off the roof of Fifth Third Arena. But with Posado though, that actually did. I had a question about that and forgot. I'm thinking like the Trey Green situation where he played like 5 games,
Yeah.
like medical red shirt. Is that something that could happen with him, or is the injury that change that or something?
I don't imagine that that's the way that'll go. Again, I haven't talked to Gabe about it specifically. I haven't asked the coaching staff about it specifically, but I can't. It feels to me like if he decides to play, then he'll play. It's not going to be he's not going to come back from a torn meniscus, the second week of January, play for 5 games. The team goes 1-4, and then say, you know what, guys, I'm gonna catch a bag next year. I'm gonna hang up.
Wouldn't be.
Yeah, the optics wouldn't be good for the next coach in the portal if he did decide to leave. The optics wouldn't be good for the Xavier fan base if he decided to come back. It's like, hey, if you're gonna play, then play, right? I think that's the idea.
I'm not making any character assessment here. Thought that
Yeah, no. I whether we see him play or not, I don't know. I'm no doctor, but I think if he decides to play, he'll just lace him up for the rest of the season, whenever that is. Yep.
Well, cool, Paul. Thank you for doing this. That's all I had.
Johnny, I gotta say, I know why you changed it, but it's really jarring not to see the Coney in your profile picture.
You got okay, how about this? You have the ear of Richard, right?
Yep.
You got to get him a picture holding a cheese coney, and then we can get back to it.
I think that one that you had of Sean was from the Crosstown shootout, like the pregame party. Okay, so this year, I don't know if I'll be at that, but if I am at that, and maybe I can get Richard to hold a coney, and we can just get on brand, because it is jarring to see some sort of nature sign in your profile picture.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Thank you.
I appreciate you. I will look here. Let's look on you for anybody listening on Spaces right now. 2 things. One, if you missed anything, I'm going to upload this show into the Rebound Rundowns podcast feed for tomorrow morning. So I'm going to do the show. Like the first part of the show, first 5 or 6 minutes of the show will be the regular show that you listen to every day, and then the back half of the show will be Spaces, so you can tune in and listen. You can also go watch this on YouTube. So if you want to go back and you missed anything there, I know a lot of you are watching on YouTube right now, but maybe you're not on, all of you listening on Twitter, obviously on Twitter, but maybe some of you, have friends or people that want to talk that aren't on Twitter. You can go back and you can watch it all on YouTube. It's simul-streamed. I guess I made that word up. I could have sworn I knew that word from somewhere. I guess I made up the word simul-stream, but it's being simul-streamed on YouTube, and I stick by it. Okay, going to a YouTube comment now. Brett Frederick says the NIL. Hold on, Mr. Domino. I'll get to you, Mr. Domino, in just a second on Twitter. Going over to YouTube real quick. Brett Frederick says the NIL era of college basketball sucks. I understand the frustration with it. Seton Hall fans went through the frustration with it last year. They're continuing to go through with it. I understand the frustration. What my take lies, I think the transfer portal, the unlimited transfer portal era, has done more damage to the sport from a fan perspective than NIL, because I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. I sound like a broken record. For the most part, schools are still getting the type of player that they were always getting. Players are still going to the schools that they were always going to, for the most part, the vast majority. The difference now is, excuse me, I had a great pasta dinner. I paired it with a soda. Now I got I got a little bit of a blockage here that I'm trying to get out. All right. They paired oh no, paired dinner. What they did in college basketball with the transfer portal and with NIL is now you have the opportunity to go anywhere you want, whenever you want. And because of that, it has devalued a lot of in a lot of fans' eyes. It makes it so hard now to connect with your team because you don't get to know the players. The players are from all over the world. Maybe some of these guys are coming back from the G League. But again, you're still recruiting a lot of the same type of talent. And what is a team like Xavier or even Cincinnati recently? Not so much Kentucky and Louisville in years past, but you look at a lot of the teams that I cover on the Rebound Rundown, they built themselves around development, around bringing guys in who were fairly highly rated high school seniors, and then developing them into all kinds of players by the time that they're seniors in college. You're not seeing that as much now, and that's the frustration. I think if college basketball goes back to the one-time transfer rule, which I would be a major proponent of. I'm not saying you can't transfer at all like the old days, 15, 20 years ago. I'm saying you can transfer once. You know, if you're at a mid-major, you pick your high major that you're going to, and you're there. Or if you're at a high major and you feel like it's not working out, you're riding a pine, you go back down to the mid-major level, that's where you are, unless your coach leaves. And that's a decision you gotta make because I think sitting out for a year would deter a lot of players from wanting to go back into the portal. And I think that if that gets fixed and some governing body out there, whether it's the NCAA or whoever, is able to correct that, I think you'll start to see water find its level. All right, Mr. Domino, I'm going to get you in here. I believe he's a Marquette fan. Go ahead. Unmute yourself, Mr. Domino.
Mr. Frischner, how are you doing
I'm
today?
doing great. Good to hear from you.
It's great to hear from you. Okay. Marquette game just came back on. Three quick questions.
Yeah.
One, as a non-Xavier fan, when I'm watching them in the non-con, who's the guy that pops out? Who should I be keeping an eye on?
I would say the best player on the well, the leading scorer going into Monday's game was Malik Messina Moore, but he didn't even attempt a shot against Santa Clara. I think he's the most fluid player on the team. He's the guy that Xavier could lean on as the season goes on. He had a bad game on Monday, but I think he's the guy that stands out. The only asterisk there is that he doesn't have any eligibility remaining. So if you're looking for somebody to build around going forward, he's had a really rough start to the season, but Anthony Robinson down low, if you can find something defensively and on the boards with him, he's got to develop a lot because he hasn't shown a ton so far, but he has the physical makeup to maybe get there as the season goes on. Those are two names I'd give you. Question two.
I like that. I like that. I'll look into them. Okay. Question two. For NIL, I'm not going to get into specifics. You know a lot more about it than me, but if Xavier continues to have struggles, do you think there's a program out there they should model themselves after to try to get the most bang for their buck?
Are you trying to lead me into a Marquette answer here? Are you trying to hold my hand to guide me into a Marquette answer where there's no transfers?
We'll be here all night. Start talking Marquette. We'll say Marquette's not there.
I mean, there are teams. I mean, you look at Santa Clara the other night. I mean, Santa Clara, all 5 of their starters played key roles on last year's team. Retention is more prominent in college basketball than a lot of people realize. It's just that a lot of schools similar to the Xavier has extenuating circumstances as well. Sean Miller leaves, Richard Pitino comes in, you got to turn a roster over. You had injuries the year before. But the last 3 years for Xavier have been unprecedented. And I think that's where a lot of fans of Xavier have got this kind of warped vision or warped frame of reference because it's really hard right now to discern what's happening at Xavier and differentiate it from what's happening elsewhere because you might hear bits and pieces, but if Xavier's the only team that you follow every single day, then you might not pick up on it as much as others. There were thousands of players in the transfer portal last year. I'm not saying that it's not a problem. It's a major problem, but there is retention if you have stability in the program.
That makes sense. You get used to success too at a point, and then you kind of just expect it with the new guy
Yep.
coming off a tournament win.
Yeah. And what's your third question?
Third question, not even a question, Paul. A friend of mine, Xavier fan, we watched the game when you were commentating. You did a great job.
I
Just wanted to give
appreciate
you a
that.
shout out.
I
Love the
appreciate that,
6-7
Mr.
comment.
Domino. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been not to get sappy, but it's been a goal of mine for a long time to really expand my my play-by-play reach in the sport of college basketball. And this year I've taken a significant jump with that. And not done yet. Still 4 games left, 3 on CBS Sports Network. I'll have 2 down at Charleston, 1 at Campbell, 1 at Xavier. Coming up here over the next couple of months. Hopefully, can add a few more as the schedule goes on. So yeah, I appreciate you listening.
Thanks, Paul. Can you get a Ben Gold shout out on your next pass?
Ben Gold. If I'm doing a Marquette game, Ben Gold will get plenty of shout outs. I'll tell you that.
Okay,
All right. Got you,
Head
Mr.
out.
Domino. Yep. Talk soon. All right. I'm going to go to Dr. Rock here. First Doc Rock call of the season.
Hey, Paul, it's good to talk to you, brother.
What's up, Doc?
I want to follow up on that last comment. Congratulations, man. Everybody that has followed you has known that you were going to be doing broadcasting, and now you got your foot in the water. And like you've heard me say before, we're going to see you on ESPN doing the big show. Just watch.
I appreciate you, Doc. It's been a dream for a while, and I'm glad to have like you said, gotten a few in here so far this season. It's been fun. What's on your mind?
I got three things.
Okay.
I'll
You've
get to
been cooped up without a spaces for a long time, Doc. So you probably got a lot on your mind.
Yeah. Well, the first one is I know Robertson is driving everyone crazy. He just wow. I mean, but he doesn't seem to have terrible hands. Am I the only one that he can't seem to catch the ball or hold on to the ball?
No, a lot of the problems of why he didn't play last year at Virginia are starting to crop up here early in the season.
Can that be fixed, or is that just something you got and you don't have?
No, I think
What do you-
he was only a freshman last year. He didn't play a ton of minutes, and he hasn't seen a ton of time on the court. Now he's finally playing major minutes at a high major level, and I think as the season goes on, if you want somebody that will get significantly better over the course of the season, he would be my pick just because he has, in my mind, just with his physical build, such a high ceiling. He just has to start showing it, as the season goes on.
And the other part of that is he doesn't seem to be passionate about the game. I know he's been said he's an introvert and is not very emotional, but my God, he doesn't seem to be upset when he makes mistakes. He doesn't.
He's a
He
very
doesn't seem to-
even-keeled guy.
Man, as a fan, it's really frustrating. And the whole team, that's one of the things that I think is frustrating so much is we're not seeing the passion. I mean, when you're losing 50-50 balls at Centos, I mean, you're going to lose the crowd quick. That has been extremely frustrating. I, I love Xavier basketball. I'm extremely optimistic, but my God, being playing soft is just painful to watch.
Yeah, nothing to add there.
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. I think I'm speaking for a lot of fans,
Yeah.
And I hated this. I stayed for the whole thing, of course. And to see the place empty it really was sad. Uh, I, and I'd like to judge the fans that left, but I can't. It was like going to a root canal. You know.
Yeah.
But on a final positive note, Roddy was really impressive that second half. I saw where we were hoping he could be. He had the fight. He had the passion. He had the desire. He took the ball in his hands and he went to it. And I guess that's all I got to say, brother.
Yeah, I think the message was received loud and clear to the coaching staff and the players this week. It's at the very least, right? At the very least, if you're not the most talented group, if you're not going to be able to go out there and win games in the Big East this year against top teams, the least that the fans ask, I'm sure, is the effort and intensity that has been, uh, so well accustomed to the Xavier program over the years. And, as the season goes on, I will say, I don't know how many games this team is going to win. If you tell me right now that this team ends up winning 9 or 10 games, probably not going to fight you. But at the very least, I don't think you're going to see what you saw on Monday. I don't anticipate you're going to see that much of that going forward.
Yeah, the gentleman I go to the games with said, "Well, at least we know how low they can go."
Yeah.
I don't think they can get any worse than that.
Yeah.
The, the, I guess the final thing is the the fans have got to stick together. The students got to stick together. We got to stay behind this team. Got to let them know we love them and we're with them and hang with them through the tough times until we get to a better time. And that's all I want to leave with. And thanks for doing this.
I appreciate you, Doc. We're going to be doing this weekly. My goal is doing on Thursday night. Schedule this week worked out better on a Wednesday, but just kind of bear with us. And like I said, if we get to a point where you can't hear the whole thing, it'll be recorded. I'm going to pull the audio from this. I'm going to put it in the rundown podcast feed tomorrow morning. Pretty quick show tomorrow. Only NKU played tonight, so um, you'll be able to go back and listen to all this tomorrow. And hopefully, I can't hear the audio that you all are hearing. I can hear it on. I can't hear the audio that you all are hearing on Spaces. So, uh, hopefully, it's all good, and I'll try to balance it out when I can on the podcast. All right, that's enough rambling for me here. Got a bunch of callers. I'm going to go to Dan next. Everybody that's in the queue, I will get to you. Dan, you're up.
All right, Paul. It seems everybody is saying three things, so I'll go with three things. One about Xavier, two about kind of the future, three about external curricular or extracurricular things going on in the country.
Okay.
Thing,
Oh, we're getting political.
yeah. Well, it is sort of political.
Okay.
So one. I hope that we, by the end of the year, rebound better. I know that's a very easy thing to say.
Yep.
But in all honesty, I would really like to see us have some sort of like individuality, such as right? Shaheen Holloway always said he's had crappy teams. Let's be honest. I mean, it's the NIL is their problem, but they've always had this really good defense. They'll pick them up at half court. These guys are willing to dive for balls even if they're down by 20. I know that the sample size is pretty slim and small, so you can't really say that we haven't seen enough fight lately. But I want to say by the end of the year you can look at this team and say, they were really good at rebounding. The defense is really good. I think that's the one thing that I'm looking for something from here because we got length, we got size. They got the athleticism. I just want to see that they're able to not miss these assignments so badly. They're able to communicate. I want to see that, they can play a nice, well-connected defense. So I don't know. I want to see it be perfect at once.
Sure. I don't think that's too much to ask because I do think defensively that's where I thought this team could be decent defensively. I had major concerns in the preseason about what this team could do offensively. I just don't know where the points are going to come from on the Xavier team, but I do think defensively they will become more connected as the season goes on.
And that's what I just want to see. It's apparent, unfortunately, that offense is going to be at a premium because of. I mean, I'm sure that there's going to get a little bit more of these sets ironed out. The flow offense is going to work a little better against some matchups. But I don't know. I want to see that if we're going to be ass, he might as well be perfect at some other aspect of that. That's all I hope for.
Sure.
Second, so this kind of bleeds into a little bit of the Dayton UC matchup last night. So it's more about Dayton, less about UC. And I guess it kind of bleeds a little bit into like the Big East as well. Right?
Okay.
So you would agree with me, right? Dayton schedules so well in the non-con because they don't have enough opportunities in A-10 play, correct?
Correct.
So is the Big East trending that way? I know again, small sample size. We're only 2 weeks into the season. There are we have good games on our schedule. But if the trend continues where the Big East is sluggish and non-conference, we don't get our licks now. Like, do we have to go out individually? Like, let's forget what the team looks like today and just look at what it's going to be in 2 or 3 years, right? Because that's how we're going to build our schedule. I don't see Santa Clara being a needle mover, whereas Dayton's over here playing UC.
Marquette.
They're out there playing Marquette. I'm just wondering your opinion, Paul. Do you think at some point it's going to be, we're going to get squeezed into an area where we're going to have to schedule more difficult, more challenging? And I somewhat believe we are because, look at his dad, Rick Pitino. Of course, he has Madison Square Garden up his sleeve, but he knows that to be a premier college basketball program, you have to have exposure. Like he's not just scheduling Alabama because it's a cute opportunity. He wants his team to get the experience.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would love to see it, even beyond needing to, right? Even beyond that, as a fan of the sport, I would love to see. I'm not saying you have to do it all the time. You don't have to schedule like what Alabama did. You don't have to schedule like Alabama what they put together for the non-conference, or Gonzaga out of necessity. They don't play their games in the WCC. Streaming on Leapfrog Plus. They have to play those big games in the non-conference schedule because that's where they build their resume. The Big East doesn't have to do that. They're not to that point. They don't have to go and do that. But what I would just personally love, because of the brands in the Big East, I love that Marquette went to Dayton last year. I love now that Dayton is going to go up to Marquette next Wednesday. Some of that was built in because of the Big 12 battle, because of the the Gavitt games. You had that built in, and that's where the schedule came from. A lot of people complain about, well, what was the schedule? Where have the difficult games gone? Why has the schedule gotten so easy, or whatever you want to say? Well, that's because Xavier didn't need to schedule the home and homes. The Big East did it for them with the Gavitt games or the Big 12 battle. Now, you think about it. If you're a coach trying to schedule a home and home, well, what's going to happen? You're going to call up Marquette. We'll use a Big East example. Let's say Xavier wants to schedule Iowa, for example. Right? Iowa was this is a leftover Sean Miller game. So this game was already on the schedule. This home and home was set before Richard got there. But let's say that you call up Iowa. Well, their first question is, well, we want to play it here first. And then as Xavier, you have to be okay with, okay, do we want to try to negotiate here? Do we want to try and play this game at home? What's the give and take? Is it a home and home? Are we going to play at a neutral site? All of those things. To answer your question directly, I don't think the Big East is in a place where they have to start scheduling some of these high major games. I think with the brands of the Big East, honestly, you see UConn doing it, you see St. John's doing it. They're confident in the level of your team. If you're some of these middle of the pack teams, why it sucks? I hate it. I hate saying what I'm about to say, but it's true. And you heard the complete opposite of this when you were listening to the Rebound Rundown this year, and you had guys like Travis Steele or Todd Kowalczyk or Jeff Bowles, or these guys that are trying to schedule Josh Schertz, these guys that are in mid-major leagues trying to schedule the top-tier opponents. It's impossible. But if you're the high major opponent, why play the 100 to 175 game? Why risk it? Because you saw what happened the other night on Monday. And now all of a sudden, you might as well just play the 250-plus game and not risk it until you get into the Big East and hope that you win enough Big East games to get into the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think that the Big East is in a position at this point where it's like, you're not going to get enough Q1 opportunities in conference play, so go figure it out on your own.
And the bottom of the Big East is also good enough right now that, like if you look at the bottom of the A10, the bottom of the A10 is
Oh,
downright
I know.
it's downright horrific. So you have some landmines, and to be quite honest with you, the landmines this year might be Xavier DePaul and Seton Hall, but the landmines in the A10 are like Fordham at 280, LaSalle at 200. There are some bad teams there at the bottoms. Half the league, over half the league is sub 100. So VCU right now is 62nd. They're the top team in the league. The highest rated KenPom team in the Atlantic 10 right now is 62nd, at least for the Big East. Yeah, they're the fifth rated conference in the country, but half the league is in the top 70. So you have the opportunities there. It's just, the fact that the bottom half of the league is 70 to 116. 116 is your lowest team. You don't have to just go out there and schedule because you need to make it in with the non-conference.
No, I understand. I somewhat have the in the back of my head. I remember last year on Selection Sunday when we got picked, and it's all those guys in a room trying to come up with who's going to be our last four in, and UNC and Xavier were picked, and collectively had 2 quadruple wins. Like that.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, you look at some of these SEC teams that were included as at-large bids, and it's like they had ample amounts of Q1 opportunities. So it's like you don't get penalized for losing some of those. I mean, obviously, you get penalized for losing to KenPom 115, but I think just the bigger conversation is my feeling is it would be really cool if we were to start scheduling some more premier games. I don't even care if that's in us.
Yeah.
I would just prefer to have. I give a lot of credit to Creighton for scheduling Gonzaga and Kenna last night. I mean, that's
And Oklahoma too.
yeah. I mean, that's nuts, right? And I'm not trying to say that we emulate Creighton, but to some extent, they got a little bit of it figured out. And I kind of wish we had some of it,
Yeah.
But I get right now we're not in that position. We still have a lot to go.
Yeah, I thought you meant Gonzaga. Gonzaga played Oklahoma. They have Arizona. They have Alabama, Kentucky, UCLA, Oregon. Because then you get into the WC, and it's
I know.
It's bad. Yeah, you're not there. If you're the Big East, you're fine. I know there's some trepidation right now if you're the Big East, but look, the conference itself, the quality of the teams will bear it out. You have 2 national championship contenders at the top of the league. It might not be what it was 5 years ago, but some of these teams are very, very good teams.
It's sneaky. Butler and Georgetown I think they're good.
I love both of those. I love KJ
I
Lewis.
think
I love this Butler team. They haven't played anybody, but I really, really like both of them.
The Georgetown game in Maryland is convincing. I think they're finally over this year. I think they figure something out. They're still going to have some hiccups and boo-boos on the way, but I think they're going to be good.
I'm fully with you.
Anyway, that's my 2. Here's my 3.
Okay.
Is John Hughley pencil in for the A10 Player of the Year, or is he first team, second team? Where's he at?
I think he's player. He had 27 and 11 last night, man.
I think is he leading the A10 in scoring right now?
Is he leading the?
I'm pretty sure. I think he is.
He might be. He's playing phenomenal. He had 27 and
his box scores got like 27 points. He's like 0 for 3. 0 for 3 from the 3. It's like a complete inverse of what we were seeing last
year. He scored. He had 27 and 11 last night against Queens in an overtime win. I had Queens on a broadcast last week. That's a good team. I mean, 208 on KenPom, but like that's a decent team. Yeah, Hughley 27 and 11 last night. He was 9 for 11 from the free throw line, but he's 1 for 6 from 3 on the season. He had 25 against Sacred Heart to go along with 8 rebounds and 4 assists.
9 from 11 from the free throw line makes me believe he's eating down low.
He's 16 for 18 from the free throw line so far this season.
My God. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
But this is where he was always meant to succeed, though, at that level.
Yeah. Are you saying he wasn't a Big East center?
I mean, he essentially won Xavier an NCAA tournament game last year.
That is very, very true.
So,
okay.
I'll let you take that as you will, Dan.
The big medication. Rest in peace. Well, not rest in peace. Good luck.
He's thriving. Yeah, what are you talking about? He's
doing really well
thriving.
for himself. All right, that's all I got.
The big medication has never been more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say.
All right, Dan. Thanks. All
All
right.
right. See ya.
Yep. I'm going to go to Cap here. Cap, before you talk, I will say again, I'll just reiterate, I know a lot of people have been bouncing in and out here, live on YouTube, and this will be recorded, or it is being recorded. You can listen back to the spaces on the Rebound Rundowns podcast feed tomorrow morning. Okay, Cap, go ahead.
What's up, Paul? I was just talking to Kenny, and that's just gonna be nice not being a producer of content, being a consumer of content. Thank you for that. I was just kind of wondering because it's just me as a fan. This is like my fan hat. Like, just something's not really adding up to me, and I'm just kind of wondering, just like what are the reasons for positivity for 2026 going into next season? What's going to change? What will change?
I think there's a couple of things. I think this coaching staff and how they evaluate the Big East, I think they will have a much clearer picture at the end of this season of the kind of roster that they will want to put together to win in the Big East. Now, I know that the comeback that you would have to that is the head coach's dad is one of, if not the best coaches in the conference in the country right now. So, I understand that. At the same time, being in it and being in the Big East is different than being at New Mexico. And I think this will be a very valuable year for this coaching staff to now know in the 26 portal season, here's the type of player we want. And then also, and that's not to say that they didn't get the guys this year necessarily, because I do think with the NIL budget that they had, combined with the fact that they needed 12 or 13 new players, that they were hamstrung in a lot of different ways. The timing, the player availability, all of those things. But I think this will be very valuable for that one reason. And two, I don't know how much bigger, but I think the NIL budget for next season will be bigger than it is this current season. And if it is, and if the rules play out as we think they will, then Xavier should at least have a bit of a leg up on everybody else.
Yeah, I love it. That's really all that I got, man. And thank you for God's gift to humanity. Thank you.
The simul stream is going strong right now. Very strong. Subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. All right, I'm gonna do it. We'll see. Probationary
No.
on a probationary
Don't tell me
basis.
this is Yuli.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Did you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
no.
Go ahead.
Well, Davis slack. All these teams that are closest to the Big East in the last 4 or 5 years haven't had a good first season. It's taken them 3 or 4 years to build a team. So it's like if you overreact to one bad season, like it's a building process in the new landscape of college basketball. So I think that Patino will figure it out. And obviously the first year, just got to see what works and then build on it. So I think that in the long run, Xavier will probably be better under Patino than Villanova was trying to be under Kyle Neptune, because they have better resources and they just have a better setup. So that's one thing I wanted to say. So maybe the success of Xavier women's soccer is just going to help the school's spirits in a way, because I think that they can make a run to the finals.
Yeah, Xavier women's soccer playing Dayton in the NCAA tournament at 6:30 Saturday night. I'll be on a broadcast with Mike Schmaltz. Looking forward to that one. Should be a nice weekend of weather too. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Yuli, appreciate the call. To your point, I think that it's tough to have a 4-year plan in this day and age. I think most coaches would probably tell you that you have a 2-year plan in today's landscape of college basketball, that you have your guys that you get in, the core that you build around, the players that you feel like this is my group. And then after that, you have a second season to win with that group. And then that group probably either transfers or graduates or whatever. The day and age of 4 years to develop a player like James Barr, who most Xavier fans would probably point to as the best example of development, I just don't know if you're going to see a whole lot of that as least as long as the current rules are established. Look at Butler. Butler is going to be a fairly good team in the Big East this season. Finley Bizjack is the only player on that team with 3 years of experience in a Butler uniform. So, you're gonna have to turn things over. You're gonna have to figure out what works. You're gonna have to understand what works in the portal and what it takes to win at the Big East level as far as talent is concerned. Build a core in 2026, 2027, so the 26-27 season, but the 26 portal class. Develop that for a year, and then in the 27-28 year, that's where you hope to really have something cooking. I know that it's hard to say that when you're sitting here in November of 2025 and to think that far in the future, but sometimes that's just how it is right now. Okay, Cap is still on here. Dan is still on here. If you guys have anything else you want to say, feel free. If not, I'm probably going to wrap this up. We've been going for a little over an hour. Excuse me, a little over an hour now. I don't have any other calls lined up. If anybody does want to call in, feel free. Um, if anybody has anything else they want to say, I'll give it a few more seconds here before I wrap up the show, and we'll kick on out of here. Appreciate all of you watching. Appreciate all of you listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the Rebound Rundown. Try to have some more guests on here as things settle down from a broadcast perspective on my end. Appreciate all of you, and we'll talk to you next time on the Rebound Rundown Spaces here on Twitter, YouTube, and everywhere else. Have a great. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Look at this at the buzzer. At the buzzer. Hold on. Don't leave. At the buzzer. KY Muskie. If he's there. What's
How
up?
are you doing, Paul?
I'm good.
Good. I mean, I don't know how much there is to talk about this team so far, but I liked Dan's philosophy of just picking a good element we can find out of, I think he called it the ass of the team. And I would say that's the defense so far. I mean, I liked the defense. Again, I think it was the Marist game, the first game. It looked solid. I wish we saw more of that against Santa Clara. I don't really know where it went. But I think there's some upside to the defense. I know the offense is a struggle, but I mean, there's some promise on that side. And for the Iowa game coming up, I just want to see the team show some fight. I don't want to see the Santa Clara thing again. I hope it can get worse than what we saw, but Iowa could get ugly if things don't go right. But I really think this group can gel together as we go on. I mean, the conference is not amazing. Like the middle of the pack, there's many teams scrap away against, I think. So I mean, you can definitely there's some ones on the table here. It's not doom and gloom, I think. I mean, hopefully we can just find some players that we can work towards for the future for Patino to find. But that's all I got. I also wanted to give a shout out to the WKU Hilltoppers. They beat EKU this week. So
That was a
go
great
Tops.
game. That was an outstanding game.
Yeah, it was. But hopefully Coach Hank can get the WKU wins.
It was also a Pulse Pick of the Day winner. Shameless plug there. All right, KY, I appreciate you.
Thank
you. Yep. So again, thanks to everybody for listening. I'm going to kick out of the show now because this is going to be recorded. So enjoy your what is this? Tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. Enjoy your Thursday, everybody, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And if you're on the spaces, I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody on YouTube. Again, make sure you subscribe, share, rate, comment, like, review, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody.